Hi guys, today's video is a topic that is very close to my heart, and people I know a lot of people have been affected by it, and that is suicide. I'm gonna be it's to raise awareness, it's to give some prevention ideas and kind of tools to people, and to explain it to people who maybe don't understand what could lead someone to get to that point or how it would feel. I'm going to try and cover quite a lot, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do this in one big video or if I'm going to break it into little bits, but we'll see. So the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is things that could lead someone to be suicidal or make themselves try and commit suicide. Um, Number two, I'm going to be doing things that I found helpful and things that I know other people have found helpful. Number three is going to be harmful things that have definitely not helped the people I know and myself. Next to that, after that, it's going to be what does it feel like. Well, no, sorry, we'll do it in another order. What leads up to an attempt? So, what could be some warning signs, some little signals that you might pick up on or you might see in yourself? And if you do see any of these signals, I'd easily say get help, like just straight away get help. Even if you think, oh, it's not that bad, get to a GP, they can decide that. It's so much better to get early treatment for something that doesn't start off so bad before you then have to wait years and it gets worse and worse and takes over your life. So yeah, always, if you're in doubt, get to a GP, get to a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, anyone that has a background in mental health that might just be able to kind of say, yeah, I think you might have signs of this. And I know personally having a diagnosis can be helpful because you can then think, right, this is what I have, and now I can look into how people recover from it. So you can it's a negative thing you have it, but you can turn the diagnosis into something positive because it gives you an idea of what you're working with and what you need to be working on. Okay, so we're going to start with what leads someone to commit suicide. This is very general, and there will be millions more reasons that I have not said because we're all individuals, we're all unique, we all have a different life and a different way of thinking about things. But these are just some common things that could happen in your life that would maybe push you to that point. So there's things like bullying, whether at school, anywhere in the workplace, whatever, any form of bullying. That can make people feel hopeless. It can make them feel or have very low self-esteem because they think it must be my fault. They're doing this to me. They're picking on me because I'm bad. Um, there's bereavement or a loss of a close relationship or relationship that you cared about a great deal. That's always a big trigger, I think, for people, even if they're 100% mentally well, which I don't think anyone is, really, but you know what I mean. They would still struggle with that. So if you have an issue already, it can really cause problems. The obvious ones, depression, anxiety, any mental health issue, obviously that is a kind of a predisposition in a lot of suicidal attempts and suicides that have been successful. Um, Also addiction, because again you lose hope, you feel like you're stuck in a life you can't escape, and people think, well, this being dead would be better than this. I can kind of get that logic. Um, Things like abuse or an assault, a crime being committed against them or to someone they care about, any form of abuse as well. It's no form of abuse is one better or worse than another. They all have a really negative impact. And I don't think you could judge someone because they say they've not been sexually abused, but they were emotionally abused. People have an attitude to be like, oh, it's not that bad. But abuse is abuse. Like, that's damaging. You know, people need help for that. Um, and so, you know, you've got the different types of like sexual, emotional, neglect, and physical abuse. I'm sure there's lots of different more types, but they're kind of like the key four. Um, and yeah, they can have a big impact on anyone's life, no matter how mentally well or strong they are. It doesn't really make a difference. Abuse can break anyone. Fear of the future is a big thing for people, I think, when, especially if you've got depression or anxiety, you can worry exponentially more than most people do about the future, I think. And I know everyone's worried about it in some ways, you know, none of us really like change. None of us have our lives planned 100% because life doesn't work that way. Things come up, things happen. Um, some other things could be health problems, physical health problems, not just mental. Being in foster care, coming from a broken home, or having a divorce of parents. You know, these are all just some real reasons that might push someone to more into depression and suicide, I would guess. But I do feel these things can cause people to kind of break when it happens. I'm not saying permanently, I'm not saying they're damaged or anything, but emotionally they snap almost. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. Uh, and so, yeah, you can't say, oh, it's just that, it's just this. Because if someone's suicidal, it doesn't really matter what the reason is. They're at that point. They're at the point of thinking death is better than life. It doesn't matter what pushed them there, and you know, it's you've got to deal with that. Um, so we've talked about, you know, what are some predispositions, what could lead someone to do suicide. And now I'm going to talk about some things that I have found helpful and things that I know other people have found helpful. So I've divided the things that helped into mentally and physically. So there are some physical things, um, like environment, people around me, where I am, being physically restrained or contained, that kind of thing. And the mental side is more mentally or emotionally, that kind of aspect. So we'll start with the physical things. I think when I have personally tried to commit suicide, the thing that has always seemed to happen, even though I can't always understand how someone knew where I was and what I was going to do, that's beyond me in some ways, but that's a whole different topic. Um, is either the police being called because for a welfare check, or a member of the public calling the police because I'm walking down the middle of a road in the middle of the night, or I've been seen on top of a viaduct sitting there. You know, people panic. There's been other things like hospital admission, where I've been on the ward. I can't get out. I can't go to a viaduct. I can't go anywhere I want to go to do something. And yes, so I think hospital admissions can be great physically to keep you safe. There is a whole slew of things that can cause issues on a mental health ward, I guess. And, you know, I've talked about quite a lot of that in my videos already. But physically, it does the job. Um, they might be a bit heavy-handed, they might not always get things right, they might do more damage than good some days in a hospital. But they do the job. They keep you safe. You know, they check you quite often. 15 minutes, 5 minutes, every hour, half hour, it depends what OBS you're on. You could even be on constant OBS and have someone with you constantly, as the name implies. Um, and some other things I found is definitely my medication that have helped me, and definitely others. I think more because for me, I find it numbs me a little, it keeps my anxiety levels a little bit numb. Yeah, I think my medication has also helped a lot with my thoughts. I get slightly manic off it at the beginning if I stop my meds, and then I get very spiritualistic. I do a lot of research, do a lot of reading, confuse myself about what's real, and fall into a pit, basically. It's easy to spiral. So for me, medication, especially my regulars, because they do the job. Yeah, but being regular with my medication, taking it consistently, taking it at the right time today, it's not going to help you if you're skipping doses, you're not taking enough because you think, oh, I don't need that much, I don't want that much. Try it. I'm not saying medication is the be all and end all, because it most certainly is not. But it can help, it can calm you down, it can keep you on the level. They can bring the experiences that you're having down a little. And another thing important is PRN, definitely. I don't know what PRN stands for, it's some Latin. It basically means medication taken as needed. So it's not regular, you don't take it every day. But say you sprained your wrist and you went and bought some aspirin. That would be PRN. You're taking it because you need it, but you wouldn't be taking it every day regularly. And I find it helps. If I have a night where I'm really getting desperate and I take a lorazepam, even like I almost get a placebo effect straight away, because I'm like, right, that's going to be kicking in soon. And so I feel a bit calmer because I'm thinking, cool, soon I'm going to be feeling a bit better. So PRN can be a lifesaver, literally. Especially when you're feeling desperate. If you can say to yourself, right, I've got the last 20 minutes. Whether you do that 1 minute at a time, 10 seconds at a time, it doesn't matter. If you can get to it, you will start to feel better. And I think that can give you a bit of hope in that situation that, yeah, I'm going to be alright, I can get through this. Some other physical things in me and my life and others is kind of dependence. People that are dependent on you, or animals that are dependent on you. or a community that's dependent on you, whether you work in a charity shop or you do community work or you work in a church, anything like that. If you have children, if you have a spouse, a partner, family, I think a lot of people obviously say, oh, think about your family, think about your friends if you say you're suicidal. But it's easier to, for me, I think, but they'd manage, they'd cope, and really it'd be better for them. I can see, I have that argument going in my head, but then I think, well, these people love me. If I lost them, even just one of them, how heartbroken would I be? Never mind if they killed themselves. And so to me, I try and think, how would this affect the people that love me? How would it affect me if the people I love did that? And it's kind of a bit of a guilt trip, and I don't like that. But it is a point to consider for sure, is that anyone will leave a hole for someone or in something's life. You might think you've got no friends, you might think you've got no family, you might not. But I'm sure that you have someone, whether you know them, they might just see you on the street and think, oh, there's that person again, I hope they're alright. You know, like, people notice, people do care. People aren't always great at showing it, and people can be very selfish and self-centered, but I think there is a great amount of good people out there, and it's so easy for us to focus on the negatives. So easy. I think we should try and focus on the good in people, because that's what matters. You know, none of us are perfect. Every single one of us has flaws, so it's looking at the things that are good about a person. Yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but you get me. I hope anyway. Some more physical things that I found have helped is sleep hygiene. So having a regular bedtime routine, only going to my bed to sleep. I don't lie there reading, I don't play on my phone in my bed. Anything like that. If I go to bed, I know that I'm off to sleep. And that has helped a lot, really. I think because my brain just knows what it's meant to do when I get in there. Before, I'd spend a bit, like, I'd play video games in bed, I'd watch TV in bed, and my brain just didn't associate it with sleep. Some other things you can do is obviously regular meal times, regular bedtimes. I don't know if I said meal times, sorry. Regular bedtimes, having a routine, maybe having a bath or a shower, putting on a moisturiser, getting into your PJs, and then getting into bed. Whatever your pattern is. It could even just be, you know, turn off all the lights, make sure everything's off, feed the dogs, go to bed. We all have something we do before we go to bed. And it's nice if you get a routine, and it can be kind of quite comforting, I think, if you find something that is maybe not so much as enjoyable, but that you find comfort in. That's quite good. And another thing is keeping regular appointments with my workers. Keeping regular appointments with my workers, it gives me a check-in. It means they can keep an eye on me. They can see what's going on. They can get help if anything's needed. And it's being honest with them as well. It's really easy to just be like, no, I'm fine. I don't need you. I'm all right. I don't need any help. I'm fine. It's hard to accept help, but you should. And I think it's brave to accept help. It doesn't take guts to say no, it takes guts to say yes, and actually, yeah, I do need that help. Yeah, I just think being regular with your workers, it gives them a chance to assess you. You get support, you get a chance to vent and talk about whatever's been going on. So yeah, that's it basically for the physical stuff, besides good diet. Obviously I forgot about that. Good diet helps. Getting enough sleep, resting enough, eating enough, drinking enough. It's amazing how much better you feel when you're depressed when you do that. I'm not saying it's going to cure your depression, if only, but it does help. And so now I'm going to move on to the mental things, or the emotional things that have helped. I'm going to just carry on from where it finished and just keep going, basically. So I was on to the things that have helped me mentally. I'd already talked about things that help physically. Now on to the mental things. Things like hugs, people checking in with me. It really helped if there was someone that would be like, right, I'm going to text you at this time every day. We'll just see how you are, we'll have a chat. And it gave me a reason to make sure I was up and awake because I didn't want to worry them. It gave me a reason to keep myself safe because I didn't want to upset them. And so kind of giving a bit of responsibility for someone else can be good, but it can also be precious. There's definitely a balance, but I know personally, like I was talking about dependence, having someone that I know needs me around or would suffer greatly if I wasn't around definitely is a reason to fight. It's a reason to keep safe. It's a reason to do my best not to do anything to myself when I don't really care for myself. But I care more about the people around me and I don't want to be hurting them with my actions. Other things that have helped mentally, there's a few key things. Number one is honesty. Big one. Number one. Always honesty. Do not lie to the person that is suicidal. If you are suicidal, do not lie about your suicidality. As hard as that can be on either side, it's the only way to get help. People can't help if they don't know what's going on. People can't help if they don't know you're considering suicide. And it's a big thing. You know, if you're seriously considering it, it's scary. It's I think very isolating because you're in a place that you feel that no one else could understand. Yeah, it's a very isolating thing being suicidal because it's not something that you want to talk to people about openly or particularly even very easily. People might get upset, they might be worried, or even if you have people you can talk to about it, you don't want to upset them, you don't want to bring it up or be a burden. And it's the same reason people don't go to the GP is they think, oh, I'm not that bad, I can manage, I'm not ill. You know, I'm going to give that appointment to someone who needs it more than me. But sometimes the earlier you get something and you stop it, if you nip it in the bud, it saves a lot of issues. I really wish I'd got the correct help earlier. And my life could have been very different and not led to the places it has led to. So I'm a big kind of believer in catching it early is definitely better, and going maybe to the GP and having him say, well, yeah, you might be struggling, but you're not depressed, you know, but they might be able to offer you some mindfulness techniques or some groups you could go to, some chat groups, helplines. There's all sorts people can be doing to help themselves. And it's finding things that work for you individually. You know, some people find that the gym is the best thing for their mental health, especially when they're suicidal, because they can set themselves goals. I want to be this way, I want to lift this way, I want to be able to run this fast for this long. Little goals going through the day or through the week or through the month, even through the year, can be a great help. Planning things. I don't plan other than maybe a couple of weeks in advance. I'm terrified of it. In my head I've always been, I'll be dead, what's the point? Even at times when I've not been suicidal, planning is just something I struggle with. But I have friends, close friends, who are amazing at it, and they have, like, in 6 months I want to be here, after that I'm going to be here, after that I'm going to be here. And I'm envious, I wish I could do that. But having, especially a written goal list, would be amazing, because you can see what you've achieved. And it can be things like making a to-do list of the day. It could be something like get out of bed. And get out of bed could be one of your things. Number one, done. You've done one thing good that day. Number two, what else can you do? You could brush your teeth. You could have some water to be healthy. You could have a healthy breakfast. You could make yourself even just a small amount of food. You could have a biscuit for your breakfast if you struggle with food. Or a cracker. You know, it's setting goals that maybe seem insignificant, but really they add up to you making a lot of choices that are good for yourself through the day, and it's nice to recognise that. Two key things there with either talking or trying to help someone who's suicidal, or yourself being suicidal, is honesty. Be honest about how you're feeling, either end of the conversation, either the person who's trying to support the person or the person who's feeling suicidal. Be blunt, but be genuine and be gentle with it. You know, it's honesty is key, and being open is key, I think, because personally, if I'm confiding in someone and I feel they're hiding something from me, I'm going to hide things myself, because I think I can't trust this person. And so I think if you can get a good basis of truth by being honest, being open, being respectful, but yet being gentle and kind with it. You know, there's a big difference between being honest and being like a sledgehammer, and being honest and being like a mini screwdriver. It gets the job done either way, but with varying degrees of damage. Yeah, just something to think about. And also when you're suicidal, being honest about it and getting help is a massive thing. like I said earlier. And the second thing, lists, goal lists, anything like that, bucket lists, something that you can tick off every day, or something that you can look on and be inspired or be given a bit of hope by. You could write quotes on it. You could write little encouraging messages to yourself. You could get your friends to write messages for you, so that every time you look at it, you've got a nice positive reminder. That might be something good. So some other things that I found that helped me mentally, and this is the third big key thing, is lack of judgment. Not being stigmatised, not being harassed or rushed or interrupted, not being judged for what I'm saying or for how I'm feeling, not feeling like the person's going to walk away and go, what a fucking nutter. Someone who I feel is empathetic has helped me always a lot more than someone who's, again, the sledgehammer rather than the mini screwdriver. Okay, so continuing on, this is part 3. I got distracted in that too. I've been talking about some things that I found helpful and that I know other people have found helpful and they've been suicidal. I've got a few more things to add, and then we'll move on to some things that are most definitely harmful. And so the other things that I kind of wanted to add was there's this whole idea around, if I ask someone if they're suicidal and they're not, I'm going to give them the idea. No, don't worry about that. Unless they're a very young child, they've heard of suicide, they'll have experienced it in some way or seen something about it. You know, kids are getting older a lot younger, if you get me. They're exposed to a lot more than even I used to be at their age. So even if they're, say, a young teenager, I get the worry, but they've most probably already considered it at least, or it's been an option, they've thought about it, however fleeting or not. You won't be giving them the idea, and to be honest, I think it's much worth the risk that you give them the idea and you find out if there's a risk there or not, and you can help them then if there is, than you being awkward or uncomfortable to talk about it and you not finding out. And then if that person is in that state of mind, you found out. You know, that could be a lot quicker than you'd have found out. They could have carried on to attempt it if no one had noticed anything. So you might think, oh, well, it's just a little warning sign, or it's not a big thing that I noticed. It's better to check and be wrong and be like, yo, sorry, I was just worried. People will respect you. And to be honest, they may not be happy at the situation, but I think they will, in some level, be grateful that you care enough to make sure they're okay. I think that would do a lot for your relationship as well, which then leads up to the trust thing again and being honest. And being able to be open each way about A, being open if you are suicidal, and B, being open if you're talking to someone who's suicidal. And just one more thing that I want to add is don't belittle or dismiss someone's feelings, emotions, beliefs, responses, behaviours. It can be very damaging, especially with the whole they're just attention seeking. We all attention seek. Of course we do. If my dog even does it, and that's, it's not saying it's manipulative in every aspect, and that's how it's seen as. If someone says, oh, they're attention seeking, you think manipulative, lying. But a child does it. They cry when they need contact, or they cry when they need milk, or they cry when they're tired. That's attention seeking. It's the first thing we learn to do as a human. And, people say about self-harm, or they're only cutting for attention. If someone is self-harming for attention, there is an issue there. It doesn't matter if they're doing it for attention or not. No one is self-harming because they're in a good state of mind, because they're happy, because they're 100% well. It just doesn't happen. Don't belittle it. Don't dismiss it, no matter how small their upset might seem to you. I'm sure there's things that you would get upset about that they'd find trivial. We're all different. We all have different reactions and different beliefs and different feelings. And that should be celebrated, you shouldn't be pushed down because you're different. We should be all celebrated for our differences. And I know that I react to things differently than my friends do, and the other way around. Something that I can handle easy. Say, for example, going to a hospital I've never been to before, in a town I don't know, away from my family, away from my friends. I'm not saying I find that easy, but I can handle that because I've done it. I've experienced that a lot. My friends, I think, if they had to go to a hospital and they were sectioned, they couldn't leave the ward, they had no freedom, they had no rights. I think my friends would struggle with that but then I wouldn't be able to do their full-time work like they do and to the amazing capacity they do. Charlotte's a nurse and she's amazing from what I've heard, and she's a lovely person. Hi, Charlotte. And Sammy is madly talented with languages. Hi, Sammy. And Gabby's amazing with people. Like, all my friends are talented with something. Andrea is a very caring person. Everyone that I know has something that makes them different. Their experiences or their beliefs or what they know, their knowledge, their wisdom. But basically I'm trying to say that if someone is upset about something that you don't find big enough to be upset about, or big enough to be suicidal about or depressed about, don't dismiss their feelings because of how you'd react. It's not you going through that, it's them. Your reaction to how you'd react doesn't matter in this situation. You want to be helping the person with the issue, not being saying, well, I could do that better. Not quite the right attitude. And so moving on from that quite smoothly, we go into harmful things. So I'm going to start with number 1, judgement. Number 2, dismissal. Number 3, being belittled. 4, hostility and anger when you're honest about your emotions. Fear of opening up and having no safe person can be very hard for people. Or having people, or knowing that they deem as safe. I don't know. It's a very lonely place to be if you feel you've got no one. And I think if you see an opportunity where someone is offering help, or they're reaching out to you, try and accept it. And at least if you can't accept it at that point in time, don't reject it. I would be honest and say, I'm not sure I can deal with that right now, but thank you. Another big harmful thing, especially around suicide, is emotional blackmail. So just a couple more things that can be quite harmful. Obviously, like I said earlier, judgment, dismissal, dishonesty, not being able to trust people, hostility and anger when they're open about how they're feeling, emotional blackmail, being punished for being honest. That's a big one. If you feel like if you go say to your mum, or you go say to your dad, or your partner, or your boss, or anyone, you know, if it's someone especially someone you care about, and you're going up to them and you're like, actually, I'm finding this really hard, you know, I think I need some help, and then someone then either ridicules you or belittles you or punishes you almost for being honest and reaching out, and that can be so harmful. So I think it's really important to think about, when someone's honest, you might not always like what they say, but respect the fact it's their truth. And I think you can't take it personally. It's very easy to take things personally in mental health when you think someone can't care about me because they're not doing that, or they don't care about me because they can't do that for me. Mental health is equally as debilitating as physical health, I would argue. Obviously, you know, there's different ends of the spectrum that can add up. I know stress for me is a massive trigger for my suicidal feelings, because I get overwhelmed. And something that someone pointed out to me about dissociation, actually, that I knew but didn't really know, which sounds weird, I get, but he said that if they're dissociating or they're having something like a panic attack, one of the best things to do is reduce the level of stimulus around them and the stimuli around them. Okay, so we've kind of talked about what can lead people to suicide, what kind of things are in common with people who commit suicide. We've talked about things that help. We've talked a little bit about things that are harmful, so we've got a couple more little bits. I think one thing that's very important is not being emotionally blackmailed. I've had people in my life say, if you really loved me, you wouldn't want to kill yourself, or you can't care about me if you're suicidal. You know, or if you try and kill yourself, well, that means you don't love me, so I'm going to have to walk out of your life. And it's not that simple. To the person who's suicidal, it's not a slight on the people in their life. Not one bit. It's their own feelings, their own issues, their own life. And I'm not saying that other people can't be a contributing factor to suicide or being ill, being suicidal, depressed, anxious, anything like that. They certainly can be. but I think there's a big difference between bullying someone intentionally to hurt them and then trying to give someone a reason to fight, by saying, you know, I love you, I need you, if you love me, you'd stay for me. And it's a good argument, and you know what, it's got me through a few days of days that I might, you know, tried things on, because I've thought about my loved one and thought, I don't want to hurt them. But again, at the end of the day, it's more than just one person in your life, in your head when you're thinking about suicide. It's the future, or the past, or the present, or both, or all three. They say something like, if you live in the past, you're depressed. If you live in the future, you're anxious. If you live in the present, you are happy. I think that kind of emotional blackmail can be very damaging, though. It might be the sledgehammer again, when really you could say something more along the lines of, I love you, I need you, and I care about you, but I understand that your pain goes deeper than just within our relationship. What can I do to help you? Instead of making it a, you've got to not kill yourself for me, say, what can I do for you because you're fighting to live for me? That kind of thing. I think that would help your relationship a lot if you're in a similar situation. And I think it would help both parties. I think you'd feel better because you're still expressing your love. You're still expressing your concern. But the person who's on the reciprocating end of that isn't feeling shame or guilt or embarrassment. But at the same time, like I'm saying, depression and suicide and things like that, they go deeper than just how you feel about one person or how you feel about your family. There's a lot of contributing factors to suicide, and I think it's when people feel like they've got no option, or there's no hope, or there's going to be no change, and that their life is going to be always what it is at that point. And that's something I really relate to at the moment myself. And I think people feel a lot of shame and embarrassment if they can't do the things they used to be able to do as well. And I know, like, with my anxiety, things, this is what we talked about earlier, it's things that can maybe be tiny to one person can be so big to someone else. You know, to most people going to the supermarket, just an average day-to-day thing, it's not an issue. Maybe a little bit stressful, a little bit busy, a little bit noisy, you might not like the crowds, you might get impatient in the queue. But then to me, at one point, the certain supermarkets' lights would trigger flashbacks. The people could give me anxiety and panic attacks, things like that. The noise of the place, just the hustle and bustle, would overwhelm me. And it's a weird thing, but I hate packing. I get so anxious when I'm at the end of the till and I'm packing and they're passing everything down. It's my worst bit of being in the supermarket now, and most people don't even think about it. And yet it's little things that become affected in your life when you become ill with whatever it is. It's not so much always the big things. UK and the US. And hopefully you guys will be okay. But like I say, if you want a random chat, you want to just get something off your chest, leave me a comment. It'll be nice to chat to people. So look after yourselves, take care and stay safe. Bye. Okay guys, so one last thing. I just want to say that over the Christmas time, if you're struggling, you need some support, you need some help, chat to your friends, chat to your family. I know that appointments with workers get messed up around this time of year, so make sure that you know when your next appointments are. Make sure you know any meds you need to take. Hopefully you PRN if needed. And all I can say is put yourself first, look after yourself, and don't beat yourself up if you find Christmas hard. I know it's a time where a lot of people there's a thing that everyone has to be happy at Christmas and that everything's perfect, and we all know it's not. We all struggle with something. And so yeah, if you're struggling, I'm going to leave a list of helplines in the description.